Handle your high with Daddy Yoshi. All right, good. Welcome back. I'm back on air again, finally, after a couple of months of quarantining and not doing shit on my podcast. But today I'm reformatting the show, as I've sort of let everybody know who listens to the show, slowly but surely, to more of a topic-based show. But today I have my pseudo. I have a guest, but she is a pseudo. She's going to be a regular, reoccurring guest. We're going to be talking about different topics. Most people know her in the bodybuilding industry as what do they call you? I heard Sean Ray give you a nickname. He's like something like the DNA Diva or something like that. But I'm gonna
that's pretty accurate.
I'm gonna mess up your last name because but Carmen Tochenick. Tochenick. Man, I knew I was gonna murder that. Anyways, you're an IFBB pro as well, and you've been in the fitness industry for a long time. And I think for those people who are listening who don't know, you've also been a professional hockey player and all kinds of stuff in Canada. There, you live up there in. Do you live in Edmonton? Near Edmonton? Is that what you live? Right? Something like that.
Yes. Yes.
So cold land. To me, that's like Antarctica.
I know.
So,
really, it's been about plus 30 here lately, so it's not too bad in the summer, but it does get very cold. Last year, I think we broke records at minus 45. I got home from Australia and landed in minus 48 weather. It was the coldest I've ever seen it in my lifetime here.
Wow. Well, what does that equate to in the way we keep track of degrees here in the U.S.?
Oh yeah, I guess.
Because I think we use Fahrenheit stuff, right? And you guys use Celsius. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could Google it and find out for us here.
Just to give you a little bit of Tempe weather. I live in Tempe proper, and it's 6:43 right now in the evening, and it's 106 degrees outside, sunny. That's the kind of weather I get here, which I think they topped out at 109 today. What was that?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I love it, man. I've been living here now since September, and oh my God, late September or somewhere mid September. I just have fallen in love with Arizona. It's just probably my favorite state, aside from California. I would never want to live in California again. But I definitely would. I can't foresee myself not wanting to live here, except unless I got an opportunity to go back to Hawaii. Then, of course, I'm there in a heartbeat, man. Well, today I thought we would talk.
Okay, so Chad,
what was that?
That's so minus 48 Celsius is minus 54 Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. So when I was in Chicago last year, I lived there for 2 years, as you know, we had that big blizzard, that big cold front that moved in, and we had record low temperatures, and it got to negative 80 degrees. It was I can say today that literally for one day I lived in the coldest place on earth on that day. It was colder. Yeah, it was colder than Antarctica. It was colder than just for that one day. And I did this funny thing on Instagram. I did this. It's called the Mpimba effect, and essentially it's named after this Indian physicist who discovered this. You can warm up water, and when you throw it, it freezes in midair, and it's the coolest damn thing. I did a little slow-mo video on my Instagram. It was so much fun. It's pretty cool because it literally crystallizes in the air as it's falling. The water as it's falling, it looks like you're throwing like powdered ice at everybody. That's pretty cool. I don't know if you ever get a chance to do. Does it get? I'm sure it gets cold enough there to do that, right? You guys can. Have you ever done that?
It does.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We do lots of winter sports here, like snowmobiling, cross country skiing, ice fishing, downhill skiing. There's actually quite a bit to do in the cold. You just have to be open to the idea of it.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I'm not much of a winter sports fan in terms of like me doing it. I'm happy to watch some of it, but to me, it just looks like broken legs and broken arms. It's like that's what would happen to me, I think. But more power to the people who love it. I will say this. I snowboarded once when I was in my 20s, and it was pretty fun. If I could get good at it, I could totally see myself loving that. But, oh my gosh, man, I felt so insecure on that mountain, man. People whizzing by you. I'm just like a novice, not knowing what the hell I'm doing. And about 255 pounds, mind you. It seemed treacherous, to say the least.
Yeah. But bodybuilding and snowboarding doesn't go too good usually together.
Do you do all the winter sports?
I do, but lately, the last few years, I haven't downhill skied and snowboarded as much. And then last year, a year and a half ago, I was in a really bad car accident. So I didn't do any winter sports for the first time in my life. I had to rest for 6 months and recover.
Wow. Yeah, well, let's talk a little about that. So today I want to talk about a couple things. And again, I'm moving the show to a topic-based show so that I can focus on particular topics either with my guests or just by myself. So today I want to talk a little bit about some of the DNA stuff that you work with, because I find that to be really fascinating and I find it to be really useful. And I wanted to hear your reflections on what's going on right now with COVID-19 and what you're finding out, what kind of help understanding your genes could give. But also, let's talk a little bit also about, because it's a really interesting case. You're a very interesting case when it comes to this accident. You had a pretty traumatic accident a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, or was that where it was?
Yeah, it was January of 2019.
Tell everybody,
about a year and a half.
Give everybody kind of a rundown of what happened and like what happened to you, because it's kind of traumatic and it's like, wow.
Yeah, well, oh my goodness. So I was pretty competitive with my career in female physique competing, and I've got my very first couple of points for the Olympia, so I was on a good roll, and I had my sights set on competing pretty heavy that year. So I went down to Chile and trained for 1 month straight, and the day I got home was the day I was going to start my next contest prep, and I went to the west end of Edmonton here to do some guest speaking for a ladies group. And afterwards, on my way home, I just felt this kind of odd sensation. I was like, oh boy, I really didn't feel like being there actually, and I knew I shouldn't have went. So I, learned a lot about listening to my gut feelings a little bit better after this one. But anyways, I was sitting at a red light, and a lady came roaring up behind me and just smoked me at a red light. Yeah, I suffered a really bad head concussion and a lot of soft tissue damage up in my shoulder area and my right leg. And this recovery was a lot harder than my first accident. So in 1993, I was in a very tragic car accident where I was paralyzed for a year in a body cast. I was with my mom at the time. And I found that accident I recovered fairly well from. And this one was very difficult with a head injury.
Wow. What were some of the things that you can recall, or that was the most challenging for you to recover from? Like, give me an idea. We talked about this before, but what are the things that are most challenging for you that you recognize now that you have to heal from?
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not even healed. So I'm suffering now from post-concussion syndrome, and so even now I have eyesight issues, speech impediments. My memory's a little bit off at times. And I have to keep things a little more balanced in my life, so I find I can't multitask nearly as much. I have to stay very focused on what's at hand. And I've learned how to be not slowed down or anything, but very organized. So I'm still going through laser therapy, physio. I go to an eye specialist all the time to get my eyes as best as I can, because my right eye is fairly foggy still. But during the accident, it was 3 months of a black room rest, pretty much. My eyesight was really, really bad, so I'm very light sensitive. And dealing with a head concussion is hard because it's not really measurable. So it's really symptomatic, where you have to really pay attention to your symptoms and learn what's going to help you. And in most cases, you need a lot more rest than what I was used to. So it was a lot of resting.
A lot of resting, right? Well, that's kind of what, like, the brain doesn't heal quickly like that, right? Like other body parts or whatnot, injuries. It's a very delicate sort of tissue, the nervous tissue. So I imagine that it's just a slow and arduous sort of healing process.
It is, and I found that, being on a proper supplement regime, diet was critical. So I found that my diet really affected how I was healing.
In what way? Give me an example. I'm curious.
Well, if I ate inflammatory foods, for example, so I know that I can't eat
like gluten,
lactose and I can't have gluten,
right.
and if I'm not taking the proper nutraceuticals to metabolize protein well, then I need a lower protein diet just because it causes me more inflammation. And so I found that when these are the times that you kind of want to eat comfort food and not diet. But I was very strict on sticking to my diet according to my genetics at the time. And I was very focused on that because that was of all times to be more strict and to be on something to help heal as best as I could. And when I ate off plan, I just found my brain was foggy. Like I had brain fog really bad.
So that was exacerbated.
And I would get more inflammation. Yeah, and even overeating carbs too, Chad. I would get my eyesight. It would cause me major issues with my eyesight because there was inflammation behind my right eye pretty bad.
Like blurry vision and stuff like that?
Very blurry, very dizzy. If I move my head too fast, get very dizzy and nauseous.
Wow. What about anything? What about other? Is there any other physical maladies that sort of came out of this from this accident?
Yeah, my right breast, unfortunately.
Oh, wow! I didn't know that. Did it rupture?
Yeah,
rupture or something?
My tissue around my implant ruptured a bit, so that caused quite a bit of scar tissue.
Oh man, that sucks.
I know, and so that's where the seatbelt went across, and so I'm actually still getting laser therapy on that right now, and it's helping a lot. So for all the listeners out there, I found that for myself, hyperbaric therapy and low light laser therapy were by far the best treatments to help with head concussion.
Tell everybody what hyperbaric therapy is, because this is fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. So it's a chamber. There's different kinds of chambers that you can go in, and it takes you below sea level pretty much. So divers will use this type of technology to practice, and they flood the chamber with oxygen. So it's a closed-in scenario, and you go under with oxygen. Okay. So it's flooding your body with extra oxygen, and I found that it helps heal quite well. Like even for training wise,
is this the same?
It's very good for muscle recovery. Mm-hmm.
Is this the same therapy that we always used to hear, like Michael Jackson used to do? He had like a hyperbaric chamber, and he would jump in that thing every night or something like that. Was that the same kind of technology as that?
Well, I never saw his, but if they're calling it hyperbaric therapy, now there's some companies out there that have a cheaper version of this where it's not really hyperbaric. So you would need an operator to operate the machine. I've never seen one that operates itself.
No, I don't know if it operated itself. I remember seeing pictures of it. Somebody I think it was like People magazine or so. It was like years ago, right? And I think when he was alive, and he, of course, Michael Jackson, he could afford $1 million piece of equipment if he wanted. And I think that when I read it, I think it was something like several $100,000 that he paid for this piece of machinery. It wouldn't surprise me if he had an operator with it, just to hire someone that just helped him with it. But I think there has been several other people who I've read about, movie stars or other people who use it to help with, because it's like anti-aging as well. Like it helps with, because the more oxygen in the system, I mean, it is absolutely extremely healing and very, very, very good for us. Not to do it all the time, obviously, but in a therapeutic manner, probably it certainly has its advantages.
Mm-hmm. Well, so yeah, and that's the thing. Like I was doing it 7 days a week, so I would have to. Basically, my whole life was around therapy. So for the first 3 months after the accident, I was probably it felt like a full-time job between all the different doctors, chiro, physio, hyperbaric therapy, laser, trigger therapy, psychology. It was just like quite a schedule, actually. Hyperbaric. That takes up a lot of time of your day, but it was well worth it.
Well, it is your brain that you were dealing with. It's a kind of an important organ in your body, right?
Well, yes, I know it was, really.
So whatever you got to do, right?
Yeah.
I'm
And I guess
wondering.
the biggest challenge for me was not being able to read, because for a living, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I couldn't look at a year and a half later, I'm having a hard time looking at a computer screen still. And so I had really bad triggers from computer screens and store lights and things like that. Yeah.
Did it give you a headache or something, or did it give you a blurry vision, or?
Very blurred vision, headaches, and real bad irritability. Like, it almost makes you lose your focus, makes it hard to comprehend what you're even reading because you're so triggered by your eyes just not seeing correctly.
Oh, I see. Wow. Yeah, you just don't think about like what's all connected, right? Until something starts to fail on you, right? Like your brain. This reminds me, these hyperbaric chambers and this technology, this reminds me of, do you know much about Wimm Hoff, like the Wimm Hoff breathing method? Have you heard of this?
I do, absolutely. I have a nephew, Wimm Hoff breathing.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think you did tell me that. I think you. So he has it sounds very similar, in the sense that because I mean I think the whole the critical sort of technology, if you will, to call it that, behind his method of breathing of this is to alkalinize the body through deep breathing exercises in this very deep breathing exercise kind of thing that he does, and it really works. It really works really well. He's like kind of come to put a process together to do this. I actually contacted him, wanted him on my podcast. He was gonna come on, but then he got really busy, I think, and he blew me off. But I wanted to talk to him about this because I really think that I've just been, I don't know, the universe has just been telling me that for the last couple of years, breathing, Tad, you got to understand this. And what I found over the last couple of years of investigating breathing things is that I have been historically in my life a shallow breather, and it's not healthy.
Breathing technique is very, very important.
So today I'm very conscious of my breathing, and when I meditate, it's the deepest part of my focus is on a very deep and controlled breathing, slow, deep breathing, and I found that I have sleep apnea. My sleep apnea is better. Everything I feel better when I do, and so I think I've always wanted to jump into one of those chambers, those hyperbaric chambers, just to see how I would feel, to see if I could, use it for like a couple of weeks and see what kind of how I feel from it. I've heard it's been good, good, like it could reverse aging effects and stuff like that, cellularly help your body to really sort of regenerate and to operate well. But
I think it's really good, and I think it would help fight off a virus. I think it helps your body fight off things because it's hard for viruses to live within oxygen. I think it helps people overall get healthier. I've seen it do things. When I was going to that clinic, I was amazed with the amount of people that were healing from there, from all sorts of things like Lyme disease, different types of cancers. There was professional athletes, boxers, fighters in there for muscle recovery. There was people going in there right after surgery for better healing. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
So one of the things that I learned from these breathing exercises is that when you and Wimm Hoff this is where some of the speech talks that he gives about his technique, he emphasizes this, that they could prove this scientifically, that when you flood the body with oxygen, something magical happens. You alkalinize the body. The body becomes almost instantly alkalinized, and so then of course in an alkaline environment, cancers can't grow, tumors can't grow, disease states pretty much disappear for the most part, and so it provides an environment in the body of really, really wonderful healing. It's just the right atmosphere for it. So I'm pretty sure that that's probably what when you going in here in this hyperbaric chamber for 5, 6, 7 days a week and you get this nice blast of alkalinization at least once in your day for a few hours. Because it goes away pretty quick, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the healing effects. I'm positive of it. but I'm not sure exactly, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of research showing up behind things now. And, before I found that there was a lot of misconception about it. And I'm living proof. I think it works wonderful for me. So I think everybody needs to find something that works for them and be willing to try different things. I know that with our healthcare system here, there was no help for head concussion. It was like, okay, go home and rest. And I'm like, okay.
It doesn't sound very helpful to me.
That's not my type of personality. I'm like, I'm going to find something that works. And so I tried a lot of different things. And that's the thing. One thing I will say, because I hope that there's a lot of listeners, we know a lot of people that get head concussions, whether they're minor ones or serious ones. And when the person is the concussed one, so like me, sometimes we don't know even how to help ourselves. So we'll say, I find that we really isolate ourselves. And so it's really important to have an aggressive friend who will walk into your life and say, I'm going to help you. I don't care what you say. I'm not letting you turn me away. I'm here to help you get organized, get your appointments set up, make sure you're getting the help that you need. Because people with a head concussion think they don't need help.
Yeah, they don't. It's kind of like almost like having it's reminiscent. To me, it sounds like people who have like mental disorders. They oftentimes don't realize, or they feel like they're okay. They just need to do, like schizophrenics or paranoid individuals. They think this is normal, so to speak, even though they don't like it. And it's hard to see. It's kind of like addiction too. It's hard to see outside of your own addiction or of your own scenario. I would imagine.
I would encourage. I would really encourage people to do that, because I was very lucky to have a few really close friends that stepped into my life to help me.
Yeah, I guess I would imagine that especially with head injuries, that you just really you're very fortunate to have had some people who loved you and cared for you to know enough to say, hey, she can't make this choice very well.
Yes. Well, yes. And even, Chad, getting around, going to these appointments, I'm like, okay, I can't see. How am I going to drive myself from the country into 4 appointments on that day? It was impossible.
Wow. So how is it like today now, after 2 years now?
Yeah. So a year and a half later, I'm still struggling. I have had to change my training. I've had to change how I do things for work. But I'm still going to get to the finish line. It's just a little different. Yeah, I'm so suffering. I don't feel like I'm suffering. I just get a little annoyed with my eyesight here and there, and dizziness and speech. I find my speech is a little bit off. So.
Oh, in what ways? Can you tell in your head?
Yeah,
when
I can. Yeah, it's pronunciation of words. I cannot say certain words anymore. So
really?
I'm going to. Yeah. I choose different words to say, and sometimes my memory's a little bit off if I'm tired. So I find if I get sleep, eat properly, do my day routine, and keep stress down, then I'm okay. But as soon as I start getting those triggers, then I find that I get really tired. My brain's just not as functional.
Makes sense. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And I was going to say one more thing about head concussion too, just so people know, is that you don't have to hit your head on something or have a big black eye to get a head concussion. So a lot of people think that, and you can get I have a girlfriend who she was walking her dog and slipped on the ice, and she fell and just jarred her head. Because women, when they work out, they normally don't work out their necks as much. And her neck was really weak, but the surrounding muscles were stronger. So her neck snapped really quickly as she slipped on this ice. Didn't hit her head, but she ended up with a very severe head concussion.
Huh.
And so I think that's a real misunderstanding about head concussion. So I think a lot of people may not realize they even have one.
That makes sense, because it's not something you can see on the outside. You can't see, the skull is there to protect the brain, right? And there's fluid that this cerebrospinal fluid that cushions the brain against the walls of the skull, and you could easily, just by getting shook hard it happens to babies all the time. What do they call that when you shake the baby and you give it brain damage and kill it? So I totally know what you mean. That you could eat. Brain damage is not always so stereotypical in terms of like bumps on the head or whatnot. It could be something. This could be something less less obvious. But now today, you're still doing some of those therapies?
I am. So I'm doing low light laser therapy, hyperbaric therapy, and I do trigger massage therapy. And I see a psychologist about my accident, usually like twice a month or so, just because I was getting really bad PTSD from that accident.
Yeah. Does I can imagine it's a traumatic event in a person's life, especially for somebody like yourself who came from a highly active, highly professional life where you were on the move, making lots of moves, so to speak, in business and in your fitness career, and then all of a sudden to come to a grinding halt. I imagine that the emotional side of that was probably even almost harder in some ways than the physical side of recovery.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Now,
yeah, definitely.
Now, most people who know you in the industry probably know you either as a competitor or as the DNA Diva, and because you have a company that you have ownership of that is a DNA testing company that gives really wonderful data on a person's DNA in terms of how your metabolism might work, food allergies, all these different kinds of things that we need to know in terms of fitness, how we recover, what foods and what kinds of nutrients are best served, or even it sounds like from my memory, because I've seen this stuff, you and I have talked about it extensively. There's lots of good information that we can get now. You were one of the forerunners of really understanding this technology, developing this company and the science behind it with some of the other people that you work with there at your company. How did this information that you had about DNA test, did it benefit you at all through your recovery in this at all? Were you able to utilize some of this technology or some of this information and stuff that you've acquired through the last 20 years of doing all this stuff? Did it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, of course. So we do test head concussion genes in our panel.
Okay.
So I knew that I would have a little bit more difficult time for a recovery. So there's rules of thumb that doctors will say, okay, rest for 2 weeks or rest for this amount of time. And I knew that from my DNA that I would most likely have a little bit longer of a recovery, and that I get a head concussion easier than the average person. So that was one interesting area. I kind of knew that already.
Oh, okay.
And then there were several genes as far as dieting, my vitamin area, that I really took to use. Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
I really paid attention to them, and I designed my diet completely around those genes to make sure that I wasn't causing extra inflammation or stress on my body.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good. It's good. So it sounds like, I often believe that in life, our experiences, what leads up to where we are in life right now, like it's all done there's a purpose involved. There's some, even if it's not intelligent, if you will, like we didn't plan it this way, but somehow all these components in our life sort of come to a culmination at points and help us get through things. Sounds like, because I know I think you told me, and I could be wrong about this, but I thought you told me that the doctor had mentioned that if you hadn't been bodybuilding, that the accident might have been a lot worse.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah.
So I don't think any of this is coincidence.
My mind is more organized, I think, to fight through stuff, because as a bodybuilder, I think we train ourselves to struggle and emerge. So that's how we do things. And so just our personality types, I think we can get ourselves through these traumatic events a little easier.
Now, to sort of switch gears just a little bit, talk to me about, right now with COVID-19, like this is a pretty interesting time that we're going through with this pandemic. How can the DNA testing benefit people who want to understand their risk involved with COVID-19? Is there a benefit there, or tell what you recommend for this?
Well, interesting enough, actually, the meeting that I had just before getting on the phone with you here, was about some amazing breakthrough technology that we're looking at right now to pair with our DNA testing, and it's directly involved with COVID-19. I can't say too much about it right now, but probably in a couple of weeks I'll be able to. So,
Oh, cool.
as
Can
far
you
as the
give
DNA
us
testing,
can you give us a sort of prelude to what it might entail in terms of is it something that we could is it something that everybody can utilize? Is it something that's going to be helpful for everyone?
everybody will be able to utilize this. Everybody, it's huge. With the DNA testing that we currently offer, it will help somebody understand how to get their body as healthy as possible to fight off disease, pain, and illness.
Oh,
So
nice.
so we don't have specifically gene markers that we can say, okay, you're more susceptible to COVID-19 yet. But what we can do is give people, again, the insight information so that people can be on the right vitamins, eating the right foods, because some people think they're on the right diet because they're looking good in the mirror, but that might be not the best diet for their health and for fighting off disease and detoxification and such. So stressing the body less through proper fit genes as well, so you're not overtraining, is important. So all this understanding is in the DNA reports of diet and fitness that we offer.
So tell everybody a brief description of what your company is and what you actually offer, because you just will probably be able to describe it better than me.
Okay. Okay, well, just a little history. So we launched our DNA testing lab here in Canada in 2008. We just saw an enormous potential for new DNA technology to support people's health and wellness, particularly in the areas of diet and fitness. So we didn't want to go out there and focus on disease at that time. We have the gene data to do Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, bipolar, breast cancer, etc. But we at that time, people just weren't. We didn't feel like we were ready to support those type of that type of information. So we really got into diet and fitness, and we pioneered that. We were leading the edge in gene research and the development to these targeted gene panels. And it enabled people to take power over their health by understanding their unique genetic makeup. So there was a misunderstanding at the time because people thought, oh, it's going to spit me out of diet like every other diet the company does, right? And it's like, well, no, it's going to give you your genetic makeup. And I like to refer to it as almost like a deck of cards. Here's your deck of cards. Now you decide how you want to play them.
That's a really great metaphor. Actually, I like that because it is very accurate. It is extremely. That's a really great way to look at it, because we all have all these genes, right? But they're not all turned on. They're not all expressing themselves. And so, but you can, like, if I hear you correctly, this is a great way for you to be able to understand which ones are turned on, which ones are not, so to speak, but also how we might influence expressing other ones, some of the ones that we want to fully express.
Yeah, and it's going to give you, so what we provide is personal testing. So it's a cheek swab delivered right to somebody's doorstep. They cheek swab themselves, and then we run it through our lab. 2 to 4 weeks, they get this panel, and we give them professional support to help them make better decisions about their health moving forward.
Nice.
We have years of experience in developing different diet and fitness programs based on genetic information, and we train other coaches and practitioners, nutritionists, dietitians to use this tool within their business as well. So we have a certification program, and that's really what we want to do, is empower everybody to use it for themselves or with their clients.
Yeah,
to make better, more tailored decisions to the individual. And here's the thing, Tad, like in the past, we've all said, in all cases, we're like, oh shoot, now we have a problem, let's try to fix it. Whereas this is preventative. So instead of waiting till we have a problem, until we see that weight coming around the belly, or until we have a hormonal imbalance, or until we have major inflammation, we want to try to be the company that helps people prevent those situations, even as much as injury. Because I'm a professional sports player, I'm really big on injury prevention by using DNA data.
Have you, now you were telling me something about, I don't know if this is relevant to this, but you were also involved with taking this technology and doing something with the Canadian government or something. You were with an app. You were developing an application or some sort, I think, or something of that nature.
Yeah. So after the car accident, just the previous one here, it really scared me as far as what if my brain doesn't work as well as it did before this accident. And I thought, I've been working for 20 some years on DNA and the science behind it and creating a company and building all these programs. And if my brain's not going to work, all this information is going to be down the tubes pretty much. And if I'm the only one in the world that can really do this, then that's not a very good business plan. So what we did was I received a very nice grant from the government here in Canada, and we are working with artificial intelligence to build out this and scale it properly.
Nice.
So this machine learning and artificial intelligence will probably think better than what I can think or ever could think. The cool thing about this
the idea
is,
would be that. I'm sorry.
Look, the really interesting thing about this is that it's also going to teach me a lot that I'm missing. So if I have 1,000 clients that I'm putting data in for, say they're getting a knee injury or they have a ear infection or they're having colds, or we're going to be able to make a lot more real-time realizations based on DNA and what's currently going on with the client. So it's not just about DNA; it's about customer feedback.
Yeah, it sounds to me like this would also be it's a great way to collect as a reservoir of data based on like how we can, maybe we might even understand genes expression better. So these people who have these genes that are turned on are coming up with these kinds of proclivities or these kinds of issues in their life or in their journey. So stuff like that, even some mundane things like, so this sector of individuals has a higher chance of contracting COVID-19 or of having high blood pressure or so something of that nature. I know there's a lot of research done on, but it would just be great to have more information about what's going on with people real time and their genes at the same time, connecting the two together. We don't really do that right now.
Well, I have been doing that for a long time. Old school, we didn't have the technology like artificial intelligence or machine learning back then, whereas now we do. And that, one thing I do love about working in our community of fitness and bodybuilding is I love working with clients that are this dedicated because it gives us real good information and data to help the world move forward. Because if you put 20 normal, regular people on a diet, they cheat and they eat grapes when they're not supposed to eat grapes, and they stay out late and don't sleep when they're supposed to, and they miss a cardio thing here and there. Whereas if you're bodybuilding and you're doing a fitness show, you're not putting half a grape in your mouth if you're not supposed to. You're not missing a cardio session. Your life is very regimented. So that makes my data very accurate for what I'm doing with artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I really appreciate all the athletes that work with me and our company, just because it's really going to help the world be a better place with learning and new data moving forward. Because we've never been able to do anything like this before.
Yeah, this is one more. This is one more chunk of the argument that says that we all really do need each other. We need each other to learn more about ourselves, right?
Yeah, we do. We all need to help each other, and it's an amazing project to help the world understand like how we can be healthier, stronger, happier. And one thing about DNA technology that I never even, when I started this in 1997, I didn't realize at the time how much food and DNA played a role on mental health. And now we're making such major breakthroughs with helping people with mood, irritability, hormonal balance, and mental wellness. And that's a big area for me, because when I can help somebody not only look good in the mirror but feel better upstairs, they're happier, they're just their general wellness is better based on their DNA. To me, that's amazing. And when you're getting ready for even a contest, when you're getting ready for competition, I'm happy. It's not a hard grinding out thing anymore. You know, you don't have that grumpy bear thing anymore happening.
Well, I was told that I might have been a little bit grumpy, but I don't buy it for a second.
Yeah, right? None of us do.
I figured that's their disability. They're the ones who needed to
Yeah.
not me, man. I was doing my job. That's all I know. But yeah, dining can be rough. And I know, because I focus so much now. I used to focus so much more on the body because, you know, being a bodybuilder and working in the sport so long. And today, most of the extra research that I do is focused on cognitive research. Mostly, and particularly on how it pertains to our emotions and our attitude and moods. Because these are all chemical things. These are all things that we control. And there are things that are going on in our bodies that we have an influence over, and our influence is because of our lifestyles, what we eat, what we do, what we think, all those things. You know, change our chemistry in our brains, change our chemistry in our bodies, and so understanding how I always remind people the body is like a machine, and so if you can get something like a DNA report, basically it's like getting the blueprint to your machine. And you're like, right now you're operating just on, you don't even have, most people operate right now without a user manual. They're just doing it based, it's like how you figure out how to play video games. That's the way we operate our bodies. We play, fuck up, start again, do it again. It's a reiterative process of trying to figure out what works best for us. Well, that's a long and arduous process. Trust me, take it from me, being in bodybuilding for 35 years, trying to figure out diets and all this stuff. It's a long and arduous process. If there's a way to, someone would have been able to give me a handbook. I don't know. I can't tell you how many people every month who email me, message me, and ask me, what books do you recommend to do what you do? And I'm like, none. I'm like none. There's no books that I know of that can give you what I know, but there are pieces of it out there here and there, but you're going to read like 50, 60 books. And so so in lieu of doing that, find out how, get a little bit of I'd say a playbook or a handbook of the body that you have, the person that wants it, by getting a DNA test. And then you could see a bit more precisely of how, like, do you have a V8 or are you a V6? You know, because are you driving a truck that's really robust with a robust immune system, or are you driving something that's a lot more delicate, that you got to take a lot, we all are operating different kinds of machines, if you will. They all look kind of the same, but the inner workings are definitely, and like you said earlier, just because you look in the mirror and you look healthy doesn't mean the inside is healthy, and or at least operating the way we want it to. And I have a particular point of view that's where I think that the most important goal is, or an ethic in this life, is an ethic of well-being, that we should strive for well-being for everyone. And to me, that means that our goals, our body goals, our career goals, our spiritual goals, our personal goals, really should be couched around how much garnering up or shoring up the most well-being for ourselves. And we should promote that in business, promote that in our society and politics, and promote that in with our neighbors, our friends, and our families. That, in other words, that our goals should be of that, not of necessarily any, like, most people have goals around money or about career achievements or these kinds of things. Those things are fine. But if you want something that's, I think that if you really, really want to get to the root of what our goals really are, it's about having a wonderful, happy life. And to me, that is, you can't do it without a very high level of supporting well-being in your life. You have to really, really have good mind, body, spirit, and have a process that you walk through in this life that is preferable to you, that is pleasing to you, adds value to you, and it will look different to everybody. It's like my way of the well-being in my life looks a lot different than the one for my brother, even though we're identical twins. Although there are many similarities, and I would really be interested to see. We should come up with the same results, right? If my brother and I took your DNA test, we should come up with identical gene reports, shouldn't we?
No, not necessarily, Tad. No.
But we're identical. But what if we're identical twins?
It doesn't matter. We've tested triplets, identical triplets.
Really? So how does the genes change then? Is it through a modification over time?
Well, no, they can't change. So you're born with your DNA,
Okay.
What changes is your epigenetics of your lifestyle choices to turn on or off those genes. So those are like genes, they like regulate things in your body. And that's why you can have one brother who can drink milk and the other one can't. And that's we call it a mutation in the gene. And one brother was past that and the other one may have not been.
Right. So I just may have a very different gene profile of expression than my brother.
That's right. Yeah. And so everybody is almost the same. We're all like 99% the same in the world. We're very, very much alike.
You might want to remind people of that as we go out. There's people out there protesting and rioting for this Black Lives Matter movement and all these other movements. Everybody's arguing with each other. Like, hey, man, we're all about 99.9% the same. Okay. It's like,
yes, we are. And that's the thing. But yet you can have one sister or one brother different. And so identical twins. So you guys, I would bet you're fairly similar with your DNA, but it sure would be interesting to see because I don't know if your brother's good with a high protein diet or not.
Well, I've wondered this because over the years, so I'm 50 now. My brother and I are 50 years old. We just turned 50 a couple weeks ago, and I've noticed over the years. Now I've been bodybuilding for 35 years. My brother not quite as long, about 25 years, maybe 20 years. He started in college, and he hasn't lived the same eating lifestyle. I've had a much healthier eating lifestyle than he has, just because of the sport. It was just natural, and of course, I had a much more active lifestyle than he's had. But he's worked out consistently. So some of the fundamentals were always there with him as well. So he just naturally did a lot of that as well. But what I noticed over the years in college and beyond, and even today, his allergies are worse than mine. And they always have been. Like as we grew up, I can distinctly remember this when we were young, and we were grade school, junior high, and high school, pretty much identical. Everything identical, down to the foods we liked, down to how when we like. If I woke up with allergy symptoms, man, I knew my brother would have it too. Like when we were growing up. Today, not even. There's congruencies. But like, for instance, even his symptoms are different than mine. Like I get a sneezy, he'll get itchy eyes more. And I used to get that, but I don't anymore. So I can tell my allergies have evolved. And my assumption was always based on the vitamin regimen, because I've had a vitamin regimen, an intense vitamin regimen for 30 years. And he really hasn't. And of course, all this other stuff, bodybuilding, the whole lifestyle. So I'm wondering, that's probably a lot of the differences, right? Because I could just
definitely it's all, and that's the thing, is empowering people with the knowledge is really important, because to prevent different things to happen. But also, we don't want to scare people and say, oh, you have this or you're going to have this. The whole idea is to empower people to make better decisions moving forward. So, for example, if you, like for you, it could be something that you are eating causing inflammation to cause your allergies. And usually an allergy is inflammation-based to begin with. Yeah.
Well, for me, I know my allergies and his allergies are around the grasses, the ryegrass and the pollen in the air. Like when the pollen count gets high, we can usually feel it. But I don't know if that's, we don't really have too many food issues. Although I will say this, as I've gotten older, past 40, 45, I definitely notice when I eat more gluten, when I eat more stuff, I can absolutely feel certain things are inflammatory. When I eat a processed meal, man, I could tell right away, like within like 20 minutes. I'm like, I feel, and I'll be a little more bloated. If I drink too much beer, I'll be bloated. Never had these things before. Well, that's interesting. I've always wondered about how that gene expression changes and mutates, and I've always wondered if he and I, how similar we are today. Because we always joked that we've actually made a deal that if we either one of us needed a kidney or something, that it's automatic yes. Like we're going to give it to each other. Because I don't think there's we were always told that because we're genetically identical, there's no chance of rejection of any organs. So from what you know, is that true?
Yeah, you guys would be fine for that. You would be close enough, definitely, but there's such new technology coming up too, where you may not have to do that. You know, we might be able to grow something like that.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. That'd be cool, right?
Yeah.
I think we're getting there.
So cool. Yeah.
We're getting there with AI and with the technology, how advanced and how quickly we're advancing with our technology these days, and nanotechnology and everything else. It's just amazing. Like, I really see, like, in not too distant future, stuff we would have probably thought was like, Star Trekian, right?
Like the Jetsons.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm still waiting for the meals in the capsules. Remember, I don't know if you ever watched the Jetsons, but he would have like a lunch, dinner, and breakfast capsule that he took it was a meal. I was like, that was the coolest thing when I grew up. I was like, okay, I want that. Then I don't have to eat anything. I can just take a pill and I got everything.
Yeah.
Now, talking about COVID and everything, kind of changed subjects again. We were talking before the podcast about mirrors in gyms, and this is like off topic, but I always had these. I've always had some perspectives on this, but I think are they good? Are they bad? And I'm going to tell you, as a coach, I definitely think that mirrors serve a strong purpose, a stronger one than most people believe. Most people know. They don't use them like they should normally. I don't see, but certainly I think they have a value. But particularly because we're part of what we do in the gym is we're working on an aesthetic. At least bodybuilders are, but most people who go to the gym are working off that notion that they want to change their body so it's physically more appealing to them. That's an aesthetic. And so if you're working on an aesthetic, I figure you kind of got to have mirrors. But also because our bodies move in tandem with our brain activity. So in other words, when you do a bicep curl in the mirror, if you're looking at you're looking at yourself in the mirror, then you will execute that. You will get direct feedback from the mirror via visual that gives signals to your brain and allows you to get a reward system and know that you're doing something correctly. So that's why I remind people, that's why most people can't develop their back nearly as well as they can develop their chest, their shoulders, and their arms, because you can see those, but they can't see their back when they work it. And so they have a hard time connecting with it. They have a hard time getting that mind-muscle connection unless they're really good. Some people just naturally have it. I naturally had it because my back developed quickly, but I can tell you that 2 sets into every workout when I was in my 20s and 30s, I could barely stand up. My back was so pumped. It was like I felt it immediately. Like, I mean, people would ask me, dude, what are you doing with your back? I'm like, dude, it's just rows, man. I'm like, yeah. I mean, and I'd had to lay down because it would the blood would pool up in my low back, and I'd be like, oh my God, my lats would be all swollen. It felt good, but it felt bad too. But it was good. It was good. And it was one of my strong body parts. But I use those mirrors a lot. And I find that when people do that, they can connect with their muscles better. So that's the biggest advantage that I see with mirror use. But also, man, I mean, we're vain, peacockish creatures, right? And
I think I couldn't agree more with you.
What has been your take on mirrors? I mean, you said you were having a conversation with somebody about this. What was your guys' conversation?
So we always have these conversations. Like, we go to the bigger box gyms and then we go to the bodybuilding gyms, and then of course I have my own gym here, and I'm really big on having mirrors in the right places on all pieces of equipment, because I think it's very important to do exactly what you said that mirrors do for everyone. So I agree with all of that. And I guess the extra added piece to why I think regular people in normal big box gyms need mirrors is because I think people should be accountable. If you can't look yourself in the mirror and you get insecure, something is wrong. And I think they took mirrors out of the gym because people were insecure going to these gyms. So they said, no, we don't want mirrors here because people feel uncomfortable looking at themselves in the mirrors when they're working out. And to me, I think that is the worst thing that we could do.
Isn't that kind of part of the reason why you're there? Is to conquer this insecurity? Yeah. Like to build your body, make it look better?
But this is why so many gyms took them out of. And
I think it's a bad idea.
I'm like, me too. And I think people should be responsible. Like, if you never want to wear a bathing suit because you feel fat, well, then change it. Just like if you don't like looking in the mirror, change it. And that
Well, if you, I 100% agree. Actually, I think it's kind of ridiculous that I've heard this before. Tell me if this has been going on where you're at. For the last several years, since all these, these bigger gyms have sort of taken over, like the LA Fitnesses, which I detest. There's not motivating atmosphere for me, these bigger gyms. I like the smaller, dungeon-like gyms. But if you get caught posing in the gym, they'll ask you to leave, or they'll tell you to, or if you take off your shirt and try to, like a lot of, like for me, when I was competing, fuck you, I'm taking off my shirt and I'm going to take a look at myself. It's the only place I can do this. It's like, and I'm going to do it in the gym. Yeah. You don't like it, go somewhere else, or better yet, don't look. Just don't look.
Yeah.
If it bothers you. But I did hear that comment, oh, it bothers people and this kind of thing. And I've had several of my clients over the years get kicked out of the gym because they were posing in there, and they were like, and they would tell me this, and I'm just floored. I'm like, what did they think that you signed up for? I'm like, and it wasn't that the gym cared. It was that the gym cared about that some of the members cared. And it's like, so now we're catering to the lowest common denominator. The people,
that's right.
because it's
the
not.
Other, yeah. It's really important to be posing in between your sets too, to help your muscle development better. And if you can't do that in a gym, then what are we all there for?
Well, that and also, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, what does it, like you said it earlier, like what does it say about you if it bothers you to look at somebody else's progress?
Yeah.
It's like, what does it say about you? So it's, man, like, and they're like, I get it. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable either, but it's not my job. And this is why I named this podcast Handle Your High. It's not my job to handle your high for you. It's your job. Mm-hmm. So if you don't like looking at something, fucking don't look. It's like, if something makes you feel bad because you're being around it or whatnot, don't be around it. Easy. Really easy solution, but to try to force other people to live by a standard to which that is not right for them is really, 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 really kind of like selfish. Very selfish. It's totally selfish.
Yeah. Where do they draw the line? Like I've seen some crazy stuff in these gyms, like people wearing big sparkly outfits and huge glasses and hats.
If I went to the front desk of my gym and said, I'm offended by these fat fucks that come here, they need to get out of here, I would be kicked out, because it's like,
I know.
But they could come up there and say, I'm offended by this guy over here taking his shirt off. I know he's 6% body fat, but hey man, that just makes me feel uncomfortable. To me, it just sounds ludicrous.
It's absolutely crazy. I know.
But that's the kind of world we live in.
Bottom line, I think every gym should have more mirrors, and they should have mirrors in front of every piece of equipment, because it helps people correct themselves better.
Right, exactly.
For safety, to not get hurt. So people wonder why, on an incline hammer strength upright press machine, people hurt their shoulders all the time. Well, it's probably because your elbows are too high. Yeah. If you looked in a mirror, you'd probably see that. But people can't correct themselves. Their trainer probably said, hey, keep your elbows down a little lower. And they're like, oh, yes. But when they're on their own, they have no way of doing that. So they get on these machines on their own, and they have no way of checking themselves.
Well, most people who work out at the gym, I'm going to be honest, and I owned a gym. And so when I was in San Jose, and most people who join the gym don't know gym etiquette. They're just totally aloof when it comes to it. Now, most of the hardcore members will probably know a bit of it, like spotting people, looking out for people, don't leave weights on the floor, pick up after yourself, stuff like that, right? But it's the new people who are, I would say, the newest people in the last 15 years who are entering the gym, who are really just sedentary people. I'm not talking about the people who are really interested in fitness. I'm talking about they sign up at New Year's and they go like 10 times in the year. But it's a bulk. It's a large percentage of a lot of the gym membership dues, I think. And they don't want to offend the gyms don't want to offend those people. I think that's a big part of the problem, and that they're afraid of losing the revenue. And I'm like, this is the reason why that ethic of profitability doesn't work, man. It's this whole, and I'm going to get on a little thing here with my rant against capitalism. I've benefited from capitalism, but it's got serious problems. That it's produced serious problems in our culture, and this is just one of them. This is an example, I think, of one of them in a small way. But this is the world we live in today. Everyone's butthurt about something, or they're so like they're what I would call brittle spirits. They're just brittle spirits. You know, you can't say something or do something or be some way without offending people. And I guess it doesn't resonate with me. I want to be sensitive to everybody because you know me. I'm all about love and joy and happiness and good vibes. But mine come first. Sorry. And that should be the same for you and anybody else, right? Like my good vibes come first. If I can't get to that warm, wonderful place, then you're not going to like being around me. Trust me on this. Yeah. It's like, and I add more value to the world and to my exchanges, my interactions with others when I'm joyful and loving and understanding and all these good, and I'm existing on these high vibrations, you know. But I'm not if I'm somewhere else. But anyways, I used to go over gym etiquette with my members when they signed up. I would just give them a quick little introduction into the gym, into my gym, because I just didn't tolerate certain things, because I thought, we all rent this together, and so we have to be courteous. We have to be, nice to one another and understanding. And so, but being offended by somebody else's body, to me, just screams of insecurity, man. Just screams of it's like, oh my God, really? Don't bring your problems to me. Go cry on your pillow yourself. I want to be sensitive, but it's just laughable. Like I would never be offended by somebody who decided to eat themselves into 600 pounds. No, they want to do that, go for it. Man, if it made you happy, fucking eat some more. But it's probably going to kill you. I'm just being serious. It's probably going to kill you, but I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or how to do it. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. But if you want my 2 cents on look at the way I live, that's the way, But I do think that people just are a little bit sensitive, and I think it's a lot of it is part of the culture that we live in today. Is we're very aware of so many different perspectives. It's very bombarding, especially today, right? Like with all I stopped watching the news when I was in my 20s because it just was filled with junk, and I started watching a little bit of it recently with this COVID stuff, right? Trying to stay on top of all the information, and I had to stop because I would scroll, and I only looked through my Twitter feed for some of my news, and I didn't really go much beyond that. I didn't really watch anything on TV or anything like that. But man, after I'm not kidding you, 4 days of doing that, and I was getting anxious.
I know. I couldn't agree more. I was doing the same thing, and I know better than to watch the news, so I never did. But friends would pop by and pop it on, and I'd be like, "Okay, 20 minutes, got to turn it off."
I know, and I love my brother and his wife so much, but every time I go over to their place a lot, they stay pretty quarantined for the most part. They're really, really doing their job there. My brother's my twin brother is a professor and a associate dean at Arizona State, and so he has to be like an example, so to speak. But he's a lot more fearful about stuff like this than I am. I'm just not. I am just not willing to let anything in this life get in the way of my joy. Okay, and if it means that I live 60 years versus 80, that's okay, because I'm not going to live that other 20 in fear. It's just not going to happen. But he's a little different, and so he's trying to protect his family, his wife, and stuff like that, because she's a little more sensitive. But every time I go over there, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like they're talking about how many new cases there are. It's like, oh my God, you got I don't really want to talk about this. It's because they're so hyper aware, and I think that is part of the problem especially with COVID and Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. We're so hyper aware of everything that it's really hard to decipher sometimes what we should really give a shit about. So we end up giving a shit about everything, and in me at least, it caused me to feel anxious. And I was like, once I felt that anxiety start creeping up after like day 4, I was like, fuck it, done. No more scrolling. So I actually made a mandate for myself a while back that if I caught myself scrolling on any of my news feeds, I would stop. I can't do that because that's like 2 hours wasted now. You know what I mean? You look up at your clock and it's like, I've been fucking around on my news feed for fucking 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you know. You know, I don't know if you do that or not.
I try to catch myself doing that now. So I have a little timer on my phone, and I just only spend so much time on my phone doing nothing, because I used to find myself just randomly looking at not so important stuff and not getting what I needed done.
Well, you know, the I don't know if I think most people know this now, that our technology, most of the apps, especially things like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they're designed to like encourage you to interact with it. And so you get these little dopamine hits when you get a like, or when you get a share, or when you get some kind of interaction. It's like, ooh, yeah, everybody likes me, you know, kind of thing. And they don't really like you. I want to tell people, they don't really like you. They might like your picture, but it's not you. I would like to say it is, but it's not most of the time.
Right.
But yeah, so interesting. It's kind of an interesting sort of world that we live in today. I think it's a good world. I think it's a promising world. But what do you like? I love these kind of, like, I always try to think of like weird but great questions. And the one I had that popped in my head just 2 seconds, just this evening really, was like, that I wanted to ask you was, because you're doing lots of different things with the DNA stuff and with your own life and with, you know, bodybuilding and everything else. What is, in your mind, what's the coolest, most exciting thing that you've heard recently? Did I stump you?
Well, it would be what I found out today about this new technology that I'm looking at, for sure. But I wish I could say
that
more.
You can tell us.
Yeah, I wish I could. What a good question. My goodness, what is the most exciting thing? Well, I spend half time with my nephew, so I spend every day listening to him, and he's always got these exciting things to share with me, and the things that come out of an 8-year-old's mouth is usually quite interesting, actually, and funny. But well, you know what, Todd? What a wonderful question. Well, I don't know what the most exciting thing I heard.
Well, think about that for just a second, because and this is random shit for me, but I saw a little ad, and it was like, it's called an intelligent electric skateboard. Fucking the coolest thing I've seen all week. I'm like, I want one of these things. It was like on sale for like $79.99, normally $140, something like that. And it's got these oversized tires on the front and the back. It's got a battery on the thing, and it's got a little handlebar thing, so you can hold onto it, and a brake, and a LED light on the front. You can drive for 35. It goes up to 35 miles an hour for up to an hour at a time. Charges completely at 4 hours. Did I just give an ad? But it was the coolest thing. I'm like, oh my god, I want one of these. Not because I need it, but because I want to fucking play with it. I want to cruise around my neighborhood with my daughter on this thing.
That's cool.
It's just fun stuff, right? But my brother was telling me, like, on ASU campus, which is 5 miles away from my house, somewhere around 10 miles away maybe, they use these motorized scooters a lot. Like, it's really popular on campuses these days, and in cities, younger kids will use these, and other people will use these scooters to get around, because you can get around really quickly, and you don't have to, it's like owning a bike, except it's electric. And they would go really fast, right? These ones on campus will cruise 20, 30 miles an hour, right? And he said that before they instituted some rules that they couldn't drive them in certain parts of the campus, there was like 70 or something like that, 70 or 80 people a year getting hit and killed with these things, because these students would just cruise through there, get into their classes, and they would accidentally run into somebody and fucking kill them. I'm like, kill them? And he's like, yeah. They had to like once this started happening, they had to like say, no, you can't drive these things in this area, because too many accidents. They just couldn't, because the students would just cruise on them, and you can't slow down fast enough. It's like driving a mini motorcycle, except you're on a skateboard that's got like a little handlebar thing. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but
I do. Yeah.
They're the coolest things, but I totally see the danger in it. I want one though. I still want one.
I do too.
Hey, we'll get one. We'll cruise around here for a while.
Okay. Yeah.
But that was my cool thing.
I love it down there so much.
What was that?
Well, that's terrible. Just kidding. Okay, so how can I say something I saw?
You saw? Oh, you. So what? What was it?
Not that I heard.
Oh. Well.
Okay, and there was a car next.
Whoops! You broke up. Can you say that again?
It was like an old like car and whatever. Okay, so it's not something for myself. So I was driving last week and I saw this old Corvette, and it was like a kind of bright color. And so I looked over, and there were these two really old people in it, and the car was going up and down, kind of, and they were laughing so hard in the car. And I just seeing these two old people laughing their asses off in this car, driving along.
So hold on, it was a Corvette that had hydraulics on it?
No.
Okay, I think it was a bad signal, so I couldn't hear quite all of what you said. So say it again.
Okay, so I was driving along and I stopped at a red light. There was a Corvette right beside me, and I pulled up to it, and it was kind of like going up and down like it was on hydraulics, but it wasn't. It was because these two old people were laughing so hard that it was making the car go up and down.
Oh, okay.
And they were just having a blast and it made my day seeing these two people so happy.
Oh, that's nice.
And they looked old. They looked like they were 80, and they were just like out cruising and having a riot.
Oh, that's nice. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I like that too. I like that. I think it takes a lot more work, than people know to have a relationship that lasts a lifetime and that can end up with that kind of togetherness, and which is wonderful. But it's more than what I wrote. Actually, I wrote a meditation this week on love, and I don't know if you read it or not, but and I essentially talk about this concept that most people, and I've experienced this in my life with different girlfriends, wives, and people, and just interacting with people that I know. That most people, we really idealistically have this notion of unconditional love. We unconditionally love our children, our spouses, and our families. But really, we do. We don't. We don't have that. We think we do. We want that. We idealistically have that notion. But really, the kind of love that we have is, I like you a lot. And I put it like that to make a point, that it's that my definition of love doesn't require conditions. So if I say I love you, then it means that I do not require any conditions. You don't have to do anything or be any way for me to love you. Loving you is my choice because it's my orientation to life. And that's what I would call true unconditional love. That means that you can be a dick and I will still love you. You can do things that harm me and I could still love you. Why? Because I benefit. It's not about anybody else but me, because I can't do anything for anybody else, really. I can give them my energy, I can give them stuff, but I can't make them feel anything. And that's what we do everything for. So if I can't make you feel anything and you got to do that yourself, then I always figure it's easier. We tend to reflect back at people that we interact with what energy is the strongest. If you're upset and you being upset has a greater energy than me feeling loving, then guess what? You're probably going to lower my vibration if I hang around you long enough. I'm going to get a little bit more. I'm going to feel less loving and more upset than I did when I first got to you. But it would reverse if my feelings were stronger and I was more persistent, and my energy was stronger than yours. Like if I was more loving than you were upset, then you would probably tilt the balances over to the more loving side for you to feel. And that's one of the benefits we have of when people say, choose your friends wisely. My mother used to tell me that when I was growing up. She'd say, and I've heard other people say, you want to know how successful you're going to be? Look at your friends. Look, and you're going to turn out pretty much like they are, because that's kind of the crowd you're hanging out with, right? Hang out with successful people, you'll probably end up having similar kinds of successes. Hang out with people who are failing in certain areas, you're going to probably have challenges in those areas. And I don't like saying people are successes or failures. No. What we can do in this life can be more successful or less successful, but the individual doesn't change. Like what we do in this life, it's my belief, It doesn't change who you are intuitively or natively. Who you really are doesn't really change. Just the results of your life, just the results of your experience. It's like, what video game are you playing today? You know, like the video game changes, but the player who's playing it doesn't. And that's the part that I focus on the most. I focus on the player. Most people focus on the game, what game they're playing. They think they're focused on the player. They think the player in the game is them. I don't believe that to be true. I believe that we're the player playing a character. The character is this body, this life that we have, and which is why I don't like fear or get upset about death. It doesn't really bother me. It makes me sad that I can't interact with people anymore. But I'm happy because I don't believe it's an end. I believe it's like a wonderful transition into something greater. I don't know what it is, but I know that you just don't. I know that in this universe, things don't annihilate. In other words, you can't take an atom and then make it disappear. It's got to go somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. It's either got to transform into something else or it's got to go somewhere. And so, because when you have something like 1 never equals 0. It always equals 1, right? So you can't get rid of it. You got to balance that equation. And this is the way it is in this universe. So that's why I think that that when it comes to how I live my life, pardon me, it helps me to stay balanced in terms of me handling my high, managing my emotions, managing my feelings. I don't have to get so upset over things like death or things of that nature, because we only get upset over death because we sense loss, right? And if there's no loss, then there's no sadness. And to me, there's really no loss. There's a little bit, because I don't get to spend any more physical time in this life with that person, but I just don't know what the greater beyond is. Like, if you could if you could see your existence on a timeline, it would run in both directions infinitely. And our time here in this physical world would be not even a blip, not even a grain of sand's length on that timeline. That's why I don't get upset, because it's only that much of my existence. It just happens to be the only thing that I kind of am experiencing right now. If that makes sense, in this physical life. I don't know. I know you and I have some different views than probably some, but I don't know. For me, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you, and I think so. What we're talking about is really unconditional love, and I think that we have many restrictions in this world on each other, and I think people think that they understand what unconditional love is, but really, as soon as there's all these conditions, it's not unconditional love.
Right.
So, I think that learning what unconditional love is and understanding what that means to everybody and being a little more clear about that, I think would help a lot of relationships.
Well, yeah,
we're just
it's liberating.
Communicate what they think about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, at least for me, it has been extremely liberating to not have to care about how someone's loving me. That's not my responsibility to manage that, to make sure, I need you to hold my hand, or I need you to do this, or I need you to do this for me, we need to have more sex, whatever it is, whatever requests people make in relationships. It doesn't mean you should forego. I think, in my opinion, it doesn't mean that you should ignore your partner or this person that you love, their needs or their requests. Because obviously, if you really do love somebody, I really believe that you want to do that stuff. That's right. You just naturally want to do it. You don't. It's not about keeping track, and it's not about keeping score. It's about you fulfilling you making sure that, or I'll put it in my words. It's about me making sure that I can always stay in the best emotional position, which is for me a position of joy or love. And when I'm there, I have all kinds of resources to offer anyone. I can be but if I'm not in that space, and I can't manage that, and I'm always upset about something, or I'm always perturbed about this, or whatever, then I have very little to offer. Right? I can't offer you or anybody else anything if I'm not emotionally in a position to do it. It's like, So that's why I focus so much on that piece of it, and by not having to worry about and manage somebody else's feelings for them, which is what we all really request each other to do. You need to do this so I can do this, or I can feel this, kind of a request, or even people making those, they get up, like the simple fact of somebody getting upset over what somebody else says or does is what I'm talking about. It says, it's to simplify it, it's really, the request is, you need to behave this way for me to be nice to you. And it's like, well, to me, that's bullshit. I should be able to act like a jerk. And if you really embrace the ideas of love, you will see the logic in this. But if you embrace the ideas of anything else, it seems to me like it's a little short-sighted to be that you're going to be, those kinds of individuals are always going to be frustrated. They're always going to feel like everyone needs to behave a certain way for them to be able to feel something that they want to feel. And I find that to be a disability. I don't want to have to rely on you or anybody else to perform in my life a certain way or act a certain way with me so that I can feel good about you. That to me is very conditional. It says that I have to give you now a list, make it understood to you how you should behave in accordance to me so that I can feel good about you. Now, doesn't that sound just a bit selfish? It doesn't that sound like I don't give a fuck about your needs or about what you want to feel in your life or about what you really, 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 what your desires are in your life? Like, and that's the request that every marital couple makes, almost. But they just don't really realize it. At least that's been my interpretation. And for that matter, most relationships that I know, it's like they want, what's the complaint? When people complain about relationships, they complain about pretty much one thing, which is the behavior of their spouse or their partner. He did this, she did that, she said this, he said that, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. It's like, wow. Okay, well, you're going to be waiting a long time for your life to get perfect because you want because you're waiting for your partner to be perfect. It's like, instead, I say, make your partner perfect for you by taking away all of those expectations about their behaviors. Doesn't mean you don't want them to do those things. It just means that you're not going to hold them to it. And I guarantee you, my experience is this: when you stop holding people to stuff, they start living up to a higher standard. And if they don't, they're not for you. Pretty easy. I mean, who wants to tell their partner to love them in the way that you want them to love you? Do you want to do that? I don't want to do that.
No, I think one of the tricks to a relationship is just having your non-negotiables really clear at the beginning and saying, okay, like these are my non-negotiables, this type of behavior. And then if you're clear on that, then if it happens, then it's over and you move on. Whereas I don't think people really talk about stuff like that too much at the beginning.
Yeah, I know that's probably my deficit because I do. I remember having this conversation with my ex-girlfriend Suni, and she and I remember I told her, I said, hey, look, don't leave it up to me to manage your feelings. It's not my job. I love you, but I won't do it. And I said that. I was very clear about this. I said that not because I wanted to make her life more difficult or because I didn't care. No, I cared very much about her feelings, but I knew that it was a job that I am not qualified for. I'm not qualified to manage your feelings. If you make it my job, I'm going to fail. It's just I just made that clear. I'm going to fail because you're the only one that can do that job. It's like you're the only tool that fits that application. I'm not the tool that does that. You can try to make it me. People try to make their partners, their spouses, make them that, I'm looking for the person to complete me. I want to barf when I hear that. It's like, that was probably the worst line in a movie that I've ever fucking heard because it's so inaccurate. But it sounded good, in Jerry Maguire. It sounded good. But it's totally inaccurate. You don't want someone to complete you. You mean to tell me that you're not complete as a person? That you need somebody else? Doesn't that just sound a little ludicrous? Not to mention a little insecure? Like you're not good enough for yourself, for your life? That's not the person I want to be with who thinks that way.
No. I think we're brainwashed. All these things, we're growing up to think we need that. Like the type
Or
of
we need
media
other people.
taught us that.
We need our partners and our spouses to perform in some way so that we can feel good about them. That's the part that just gets me. It's like when you start simplifying things down to very simple statements like this, then you're like, okay, well, yeah, like, yes, I want them to treat me nicely, but what do I do when they don't? Well, then you don't interact with them. That's what I did. And I know that my girlfriend didn't understand. I'm like, I'm just going to walk away from those conversations. It's not because I don't love you. It's because it is because I love you. That I'm going to walk away from those conversations so that I don't get irritated with you or with the conversation. It's like I'm trying to protect my experience. I always want to feel good. And I never want to associate negative emotion with anybody that I love. Anybody. You know, it's like, no, I only want good, happy, warm fuzzies. That's all I want for the people that I interact with. So that's why I say that. And that's why, but I did make that up. I should have done that with my second wife. Because that was the big problem. I think at the end she couldn't manage her feelings, and so they dominated her experience. Next thing you know, she's unhappy and wants a divorce, and so we did. But I think she's a good example in application, at least, of how a lot of people really think it's somebody else's job to manage how they feel about them. You know, it's like if you can't manage how I feel about you, then we're not going to be together. It's like, wow, you just disempowered yourself. You better hope that you meet somebody who's one wants to take that job and two is fucking really good at it. And that's
interesting.
You know?
My ex-boyfriend said the exact same thing to me. Basically told me that it's my responsibility to make sure he's happy.
Well,
I'm like, interesting.
I would have said, whoa, okay, well, good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Hold your star, buddy. I'm sorry, but I'll drop that star so fast and it's going to crumble.
That's a very like sort of, strange. I just can't imagine somebody actually putting it like that, because most people, I think, don't intend this. They don't realize this is what's playing out because we're so used to the dialogues, right? Like, we're so used to complaining about the things that our partners or their behaviors or doing those things that it doesn't sound like I'm requesting them to manage my feelings, but that's really what they're doing. And so we don't think of it that way. But when you start putting it in those terms, I couldn't imagine people intentionally would say that. But if he did, I'm like, that would just blow me away, man. I'd be like, dude, I didn't I guess I just would have been like, okay, well, and good luck.
Yeah. I really said I don't want to be responsible for that. That's way too much for me to carry.
Well, and it's not your job, and you're not equipped. You're you.
But some people really believe that on how they grew up.
I do.
Their culture.
I realize that. Well, it's a sad disappointment to them, which is why divorce rates are at 70%, and people generally don't make it past 6 or 7 years in their relationships. It's because they're really wanting the stars and the moons here, and they just don't exist. It just doesn't exist. I mean, unless you're dating God. or some supernatural figure that can read your mind and that can understand your motives and know how you respond and what meaning you associate with everything in life, and they can just cater to you. And it's like, that doesn't sound like that other person is going to have much of a life. They're going to have the life they're going to have is constantly catering to this little toddler baby person who can't manage their feelings. I mean, I had to do that for my daughter when she was young. I had to help her manage her feelings. My mother did it for me. I'm sure your mother helped you. But then when she's gotten older, now she has to do it. And this is part of the problem, I think, that some parents, they overparent. And we do it out of love, but people always think it's strange because I tell when they ask me about my philosophies on parenting, and I tell them how I parent my daughter. It's very different than how my ex-wife parents her. She does it more traditional way. She just tells her what to do, all that kind of stuff, and I don't do that. It's not my deal. My daughter's her own person. I just happen to be her steward until she can get out on her own. I'm here to keep her safe. I'm here to love her, and the loving part is my honor to do. The safety part is my honor to do. And I do it because my orientation to her is always love. It doesn't require her to behave a certain way. It doesn't require her to earn it. She's already entitled to it. And she's entitled to it for as long as I'm alive. So, and I think that everybody needs that kind of security, because when you show someone love, what you're doing to them is you're teaching them who they are, especially when they're a child. When you love a child, you teach them their value. And that's why I think I have always had such a wonderful self-esteem, why I've always been very strong-willed, why I've always been very confident in who I am and what I want to do in my life. Because when I grew up, all I heard was how great I was, how wonderful I was, how I was worthy of love, how worthy I was of all the love that my mother would give me, my family, all that stuff. And so when I grew up, it becomes part of your identity. But if you grow up with other messages, and man, it's really like, it hurts my heart to even hear some stories from some of my clients or some other people that I know who have heard that when they talk about how they grew up and how their parents treated them, and they unknowingly giving them messages that told them that they weren't worthy, that they had to work their way to earning love or to being good in some way, like that they weren't perfect. Somebody once commented on one of my posts a while back, and I made some comment about how we were. Oh, it's in one of my affirmations. I have 3 affirmations that I always write in all my writings. At the end, I am love, I am joy, I am so very good. And it's the good part that he had a problem with. He just posted. He's like, he was a fan of mine. He didn't mean anything bad by it. He just said, we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. We're not good. By nature we're born into sin, and we must be saved from that, so to speak. It's the Christian tradition, and I'm like, I don't believe that. It's like, I don't believe it for a second. I don't believe it. So it's just kind of, but I think that the reason why that message is there in the Christian tradition is because the Christian faith, the religious part of it, the organizational part of it. Those are messages that will help perpetuate itself. So you can't tell people you have to develop a reliance on the messages and on the institution for it to survive. So they build that stuff in there naturally, like I can go on for hours about this because this is what I studied, but it's just not. It doesn't actually hold up to the actual messages that I believe that are authentic to what the historical figure Jesus would not have said that stuff. So it's really fascinating.
Yeah. Did you ever start reading that Book of Miracles?
You mentioned this a couple of times. So what book is this again? It's called the Book of Miracles?
Yeah, it's a religious book, and it's.
I think I started reading a bit of it. It's very esoteric. I mean, like it's. But I liked what I was reading. It's very Christian though. It's very, and that kind of turns me off, to be perfectly honest. Not that I don't think the message is good. It's just that I use different language when I describe the same concepts, and there's so much baggage that's loaded up on the Christian tradition with words like God and Christ and stuff like that. It's like, and they don't resonate with me. They just don't. They just, not that they don't. Not that they have no value. It's just that I don't find those. And my brother and I are word people. We're very specific with the words we select, and we're writers. But words are powerful, man. They're like when you say something. When a great orator is like a magician, they cast spells on the audience. They change people's hearts and minds with the words they speak. We do it all the time. So words are powerful things there, and they could be hurtful, as we're finding out today. In our culture, but they could also be healers. They could also help us heal and help us to show us who we are. And but yes, but I think that so the words that I use are a little bit different than what I was reading, but it was still good stuff. I totally get it, but I'd have to spend. That's a book in my first impression, because I was reading. I think I read the first chapter or the first several pages, 10 or 12 pages one night, and then I fell asleep. That it feels like you really have to be able to you have to focus and read this, because it's not easy reading.
Mm-hmm. No, I just listen to it.
Oh, okay.
I go on YouTube and listen to it. I like the messaging in it.
What is the most profound message that you got out of it? Because you've mentioned this to me a couple times, like, hey, you sound like this, or you sound like you should really read this. So what is that you're picking up on? Tell me what it is that you're picking up on that sounds similar, or that strikes you as important.
it's a true teaching of sharing, of unconditional love, and not fighting, and treating each other properly.
Why do you? I'm curious.
Yeah.
From your perspective, why do you think that we should take care of each other?
I guess when I say that, I take care of ourselves so that we can be not of service to each other, but kind of service to each other in a sense, because I think that one of the basic human needs is connection and support of each other.
Yeah.
I do think it's a human need for us to do that, and I think that's why people are getting so depressed and have so much anxiety as of late, is everything's going online and people are losing their connection. It's causing people, the humans, to have not that warm, fuzzy, joyful feeling. And I know we should all have that within us, I guess, alone, but I think that I don't think it is all about ourselves. I'm a fan of we're here to service each other and be of service as best as we can on earth.
I think people confuse sometimes when people hear my perspective on this, they think that's what I'm saying. That I think it's all because my message, my writing, and a lot of my messages really has a lot to do with the individual, but it's only because that's the only modus to which that we can operate from. It's not the goal.
That's right.
The way we operate is individually, but we live in a collective, period. So I can't do anything in this life without affecting others. It's just part of the way it works. So because of that, this COVID-19 is a perfect example. I wear a mask when I go out to go to the stores or whatever I need to do, because not for my safety, for other people's. I do it because I care about other people. I am not afraid to not wear a mask. I am not afraid of COVID. I am confident that if I got it, I would be over it. But even my time is my time, when I'm meant to go, I'm going to go. I won't fight it. But I do care about my fellow spirits out there who are living this life, and I want other. If me just wearing a mask, which is a fucking small thing to me, helps people feel better who are around me, who I don't even know, I'm going to do that. It's not a big deal. But if it compromises my well-being in some way, you can guarantee I'm taking it off. So I don't have any problem with people not wearing them. I don't have a problem with people wearing them. But I do think that the act of doing it is an act of kindness and support of others, not of myself. That's the way I see it.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So, Tad,
yes.
I have to get ready for competition, so I have to do this cardio.
Oh, you got morning cardio. Okay. We
No, I have that cardio now to do. I have to train, so I'm a little bit. I should get going.
Yes. Well, it's been wonderful having you on today. We're going to continue our conversations in the future, but so I'm going to have you on regularly. So thank you very much, Carmen, for being on the show. And I will hang on. Don't hang up after I end the recording of the podcast. Tell people how they can get a hold of one of these DNA tests, because I think some people may want to know that information.
Well, sure. Well, people could go on my website, which is karmalife.ca, or they could contact me through you. So if they called you or got in touch with you, you could get them right in touch as well. So they can order a test through you or contact me directly. And
give everybody an idea of what the cost is, since people are going to want to know that right away. There's 3 or 4, I think there's 4 or 5 different DNA tests, or you can buy combos. So tell everybody how that works.
Yeah, so there's a DNA diet panel that we do, a fitness panel, a health panel, and a brain panel. And all of them together are $350 US, or separate, they're $230. So you do save quite a bit of money by purchasing them all together. So for $350, and shipping and handling and GST would be added to that, so tax. That's how much it costs for the full package.
Great. Awesome. Well, like I said, you can it's karmalife.ca.
Yes.
Right? Or email me, message me, or leave a comment in the and get information out to anybody who needs it. So thank you so much, Carmen. I really appreciate it. I always love talking to you, and we always have a fun time whenever we've been together. I've gotten a chance to work out with you before and see you train and look at your DNA test, and I can tell you that this year might be a good year for you if you get on the ball with this. And of course, I've already told you that before, that I think you have fantastic structure, and when you get in the right shape, it'll be even better. I don't think you've nailed it yet, but I think you can.
Getting there.
Yeah, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some more talks with you, Chad. As we were talking today, this is the very first podcast I've ever done. So
Okay, well, it won't be the last.
Notes to some ideas, and it brought up a lot of things that I think that I wanted to talk with you about the show. So
cool.
On the show, so I'm hoping that we can do this again soon.
Yes. We will. We'll be doing it regularly. Okay. Well, I will stay on the line real quick, and so I just we'll sign off for this episode. This is my 50th episode of Handle Your High. Again, just for everybody out there, I might change the name. I'm thinking about it because somebody had mentioned it for easier findability on like Apple iTunes and all that stuff. It's easier to find if you have a name that's sort of more relevant to the discussions. So, but I don't know yet. I haven't found a good name. So if anybody has a good name, if anybody has some good ideas, please send them to me, and I'll put them in my list of considerations, because I'm looking for a nice, interesting name that will be descriptive of what I'm doing here. So. But thank you, Carmen. I really appreciate it. Stay on the line, and I will before we break. But for everybody else tuning in, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk again.
Handle Your High with Daddy Yoshi.